New York City, a sauna. Heat radiating off the pavement, the air thick, heavy. Inside the courthouse, 12 jurors sat drenched in sweat, their faces grim. They held a young man's life in their hands, 18 years old, accused of murdering his father. The charge, first-degree murder. The penalty, death. The evidence seemed clear-cut. The boy had argued with his father. Neighbors heard shouting. A struggle. Then, silence. A scream. The boy was found standing over his father's body. A switchblade, the alleged murder weapon, lay nearby. The defendant, a young man with haunted eyes and trembling hands, sat motionless. His entire life had led to this moment, a moment that felt like an eternity. Every breath he took was heavy, laden with the fear of the unknown. The courtroom with its cold, unyielding walls seemed to close in on him. His fate hung by a thread. The tension in the room was palpable, a thick fog of anxiety that everyone could feel. Each second that ticked by was a reminder of the gravity of the situation. The young man's mind raced with thoughts of what could have been, what might still be. The weight of the world pressed down on him. It was as if the very air he breathed was suffocating him. Each inhale a struggle against the crushing pressure of his circumstances. He felt the eyes of everyone in the room on him, judging, questioning, condemning. His gaze darted nervously around the courtroom. Hope seemed lost. He searched for a friendly face, a sign of reassurance, but found none. The walls seemed to whisper his fears back to him, amplifying his sense of isolation and despair. The jury, a diverse group of strangers, felt the gravity of the situation. Each juror brought their own experiences, biases, and emotions into the room. They were not just deciding a case, they were deciding a life. The weight of their responsibility was immense. Their faces betrayed their thoughts, doubt, anger, sympathy. Some looked at the young man with pity, others with suspicion. The room was a tapestry of human emotion, each thread contributing to the complex picture of justice. They were tasked with delivering a verdict that would forever impact the young man's life, or end it. The weight of their decision was a burden they all felt, a heavy cloak that draped over their shoulders. They knew that their choice would echo through the young man's life, and possibly through their own. The judge, a stern figure with years of experience etched on his face, delivered his instructions. His voice was steady, authoritative, a beacon of order in the chaos of the courtroom. He had seen many cases, but each one carried its own unique weight. "Your verdict must be unanimous," he boomed. His words were not just instructions, they were a command, a directive that left no room for ambiguity. The jurors listened intently, knowing the importance of their role. If there is any reasonable doubt, you must find the defendant not guilty. The concept of reasonable doubt was a cornerstone of justice, a safeguard against wrongful conviction. The judge's words were a reminder of the high standard that must be met. His words echoed in the silent courtroom. The silence was almost deafening, a stark contrast to the tension that filled the room. Each person present felt the weight of the moment, the gravity of the decision that lay ahead. The young man's future hung in the balance, and the next few moments would determine the course of his life. The jurors filed into the deliberation room. The air crackled with tension. The heat seemed to amplify their emotions. The initial vote was swift. 11 jurors voted guilty, 11 voices condemning the young man. 11 sets of eyes refusing to see anything but the prosecution's narrative. Only one juror voted not guilty, juror number 8, a quiet, observant man. He saw something others didn't, or perhaps he refused to ignore what others dismissed. His dissent hung in the air, a challenge to the certainty of the others. Juror 8 became the room's focal point. 11 pairs of eyes bore down on him. They demanded an explanation. "He's just a kid," Juror 8 stated calmly. "We're talking about sending a boy to die without being absolutely sure." His voice was quiet but firm. He was ready to fight for his belief, for the defendant's life. Juror 8 pointed out inconsistencies in the prosecution's case, the angle of the wound, the timing of the passing elevated train, the questionable reliability of the witnesses. Each point he raised chipped away at the seemingly impenetrable wall of certainty. Section 5, the shadow of a doubt grows. The temperature in the room rose, tempers flared, jurors argued, debated, and dissected every piece of evidence. The switchblade became a point of contention. Juror 8 demonstrated that the knife, a common model, wasn't unique enough to prove guilt. He purchased an identical one from a nearby pawn shop. The jurors were stunned. The testimony of an elderly witness who claimed to have seen the murder through her window was also scrutinized. Juror 8 questioned her eyesight and the speed of the passing train, casting doubt on her ability to accurately witness the event. Section 6. Reasonable doubt takes hold. As the hours dragged on, the jurors grew weary. The initial certainty wavered. The seed of doubt planted by Juror 8 had taken root. The jurors began to question their own perceptions. They re-examined the evidence, this time with a critical eye. One by one, jurors switched their votes, some reluctantly, others with a sense of relief. The pressure in the room began to dissipate, replaced by a growing sense of collective responsibility. They were no longer blindly following the prosecution's narrative. They were seeking the truth. Section 7. The walls close in. Juror 3, a loud, opinionated man, remained steadfast in his belief of the defendant's guilt. His personal biases, fueled by a strained relationship with his own son, clouded his judgment. He became increasingly agitated as the other jurors switched their votes. Juror 3's resistance intensified, culminating in a dramatic outburst. He lashed out at the other jurors, accusing them of being swayed by emotion. He pounded on the table, his face contorted with rage. The room fell silent, the tension palpable. Section 8. A Glimmer of Hope. Juror 8, unfazed by Juror 3's outburst, calmly addressed his concerns. He acknowledged the emotional toll of the case but reminded everyone of their duty to deliver a verdict based on evidence, not personal feelings. His words resonated with the other jurors, reminding them of their shared responsibility. Slowly, Juror 3's anger subsided. The weight of his own words hung in the air. He looked around the table, his face etched with a mix of shame and exhaustion. The other jurors, sensing his vulnerability, offered him comfort and understanding. They had all been touched by the case, each in their own way. Section 9. Unanimous for justice. Finally, after hours of deliberation, Juror 3 broke down. Tears streamed down his face as he whispered, "Not guilty." The last shred of his resistance crumbled, replaced by a wave of relief and remorse. The room erupted in a collective sigh. The young man was free. The jurors filed back into the courtroom. Their faces, once etched with uncertainty, now reflected a newfound unity. The foreman read the verdict, "Not guilty." A wave of emotion swept through the courtroom. Relief, joy, justice. Section 10. The Price of Freedom. The young man, his eyes wide with disbelief, embraced his lawyer. The tension that had gripped him for months finally released in that single moment of relief. His lawyer, who had stood by him through every grueling step of the trial, returned the embrace with a reassuring pat on the back. The weight of the world lifted from his shoulders. The courtroom, once a place of dread and uncertainty, now felt like a sanctuary of justice. The faces around him, once strangers, now shared in his emotional release, their expressions mirroring his own relief and joy. He was free to go, but the ordeal had left its mark. Every step he took out of that courtroom was a step away from the nightmare that had consumed his life. Yet the memories of the accusation, the trial, and the fear of losing his freedom would forever be etched in his mind. He would forever carry the scars of the accusation, the trial, and the knowledge that his freedom had been a hair's breadth away from being extinguished. The experience had changed him, made him more aware of the fragility of freedom and the high price it often demands. As the courtroom emptied, Juror 8 lingered, the weight of his decision still heavy on his mind. He had been the voice of reason, the one who had seen the truth when others had doubted. He watched as the young man walked away, his steps lighter, his future uncertain but full of possibility. The juror knew that his choice had given the young man a second chance at life, a chance to rebuild and move forward. Juror 8 had fought for him, for his life, for his freedom. It had been a battle of wills, a test of integrity, and in the end, justice had prevailed. The juror felt a profound sense of accomplishment, knowing he had made a difference. And in doing so, he had found a sense of peace within himself. The trial had been a crucible, forging bonds of empathy and understanding. As he left the courtroom, he carried with him the knowledge that sometimes the price of freedom is vigilance, courage, and the unwavering belief in justice. Section 11. A Quiet Understanding. Outside the courthouse, Juror 8 encountered Juror 9, an elderly gentleman who had been one of the first to change his vote. Their eyes met, and in that brief moment, A world of unspoken words passed between them. A silent nod of acknowledgement passed between them. It was a nod that spoke of mutual respect, of shared burdens, and of the silent understanding that they had both played a crucial role in the outcome of the trial. They had both witnessed the fragility of justice, the power of doubt, and the importance of fighting for what is right. The trial had been a grueling process, filled with heated debates and moments of intense reflection. Each juror had to confront their own biases and preconceptions, and in the end, it was their collective effort that led to the final verdict. As they walked away, melting back into the sweltering city, they carried with them the weight of their decision. The city around them buzzed with life, oblivious to the monumental decision that had just been made within the courthouse walls. The two men, now bound by their shared experience, knew that they had done the right thing. They knew that their verdict had not only saved a young man's life, but had also reaffirmed their faith in the justice system. The relief was palpable, but so was the sense of responsibility. They had been entrusted with a young man's fate, and they had not taken that responsibility lightly, and in the power of a single voice to make a difference. Juror 8 had been that voice, the one who had dared to question, to challenge, and to stand firm in the face of opposition. His courage had sparked a chain reaction, leading others to reconsider and ultimately change their votes. It was a testament to the impact one person can have when they choose to stand up for what they believe in.